Hi again, buddies. I am Jacaro Toro, and on this channel I focus on Australian Aborigines, languages, cultures, history, and so on. And today I thought we'd ask the question, conservative languages. Where are such languages found? With conservative, I mean languages that only change slowly over time, as opposed to languages that change fast. And you see, it has been found by linguists that such languages are often found at the outermost edges of an area in which a group of languages or a language family is spread. So take Icelandic and Faroese, for example. 1,000 years ago, the Scandinavian language was in a process of rapid change. And then some Norwegians got fed up with their king and upped sticks and moved to Iceland, a place that at that time only had a small population of Irish monks. And some Swedes and Danes also tagged along. Some people settled on the Faroe Islands along the way. And when people had moved to Iceland and the Faroe Islands, these languages all of a sudden became incredibly conservative in the area of grammar. Not necessarily in the area of phonology, but definitely in the area of grammar. And Icelandic, the northwesternmost Scandinavian language, is even more conservative than Faroese. Here in Scandinavia proper, in Norway, Sweden and Denmark, the languages continued to change relatively fast. And here in this part of the world, around the Baltic Sea, we have the Balto-Finnic languages, the northernmost of which is Finnish. And Finnish is remarkably conservative in a number of ways. Now, if we look at Australia and consider the Pama-Nyungan language family, this is a language family that is spread out over most of the continent, except for in the area that is called the top end. So, what are the outermost edges of the spread of the Pama-Nyungan languages? Well, that would be the coasts. And as noted by Professor Alan Dench in an article in the Australian Journal of Linguistics in 1994, we have 3 incredibly conservative languages here along the eastern and western coasts. Along the west coast we have Ngara, a language I have studied and written a number of articles and books about. And along the east coast, Wargamai of northern Queensland, originally spoken on the outskirts of what is today the city of Townsville. Townsville, where I lived and studied for a year. And we have Pama-Nyungan of the central coast of New South Wales. And we will, as Dench did in his article, look at singular pronouns. Actually, he looked at first and second person singular. I will throw third person singular into the mix as well. Now, when it comes to singular pronouns in Pama-Nyungan languages, they often take tripartite case marking. And Dixon that would be Professor R.M.W. Dixon. He has reconstructed tripartite case marking for the pronouns in the Pama-Nyungan proto-language. So what is tripartite case marking? Well, that means that there are 3 different forms for the subject and the direct object. One case form for the subject of the intransitive clause. That is a clause that does not need an object, a direct object. For example, Carl sleeps. This case form we call nominative. There is another case form for the transitive subject. So the subject in a transitive clause, a clause where there is an object present, an object that is influenced in some way by what the subject is doing. So an example would be Carl kicks the ball, where the ball obviously is influenced. It changes location as a result of Carl kicking it. So there is a separate form for the transitive subject. We call this form the ergative. And there is a third form for the transitive object. So the ball, in the example I just gave you. If we look at these 3 languages then, I have ngara pronouns in the first column, and then wargamai in the middle one, and kumbaingir. So, first person singular nominative is ngaya in ngara, ngaiba in wargamai, and ngaya in kumbaingir. So, and as I said, these 2 languages are separated by thousands of kilometers, and yet we find exactly the same pronoun. And the only one that stands out, as you saw and heard, is the wargamai one, where a B has been inserted for some reason at some point. And the reconstructed forms, the forms that Dixon has reconstructed from the proto-language for the first person singular nominative and ergative are ngai and ngado. And the ergative forms in the 3 languages are ngaja, ngaja, and ngaja. And once again, you see the remarkable similarities. I haven't written the accusative forms on the board, but they are, and you will once again notice the remarkable similarities here. We have nganya, nganya, and nganya. Yes. Moving on to second person singular, we find these nominative forms, nyimba, ngimba, and nginda. Now, here's a thing we need to note. We have tripartite case marking, as I said, for singular pronouns in many Pama-Nyungan languages. But in some languages, this has disappeared altogether. In other languages, one of the pronouns no longer take tripartite case marking. So this would be the case here with second person singular in kumbaingir. And it is also the case with third person singular in ngara. But we'll get back to third person soon. So what they have done here in kumbaingir is that they have started to use the ergative form also for intransitive subjects. So the ergative forms in the three languages are ninda, ninda, and minda. And the reconstructed protoforms by Dixon are min for nominative and nindo for ergative. So if this is correct, this would mean that the first nasal has changed in ngara from ng to ny. Yes. And let's do the accusative forms as well. We have nina, nina, and perhaps unsurprisingly at this point, nina. Yes. When it comes to third-person pronouns, Pama-Nyungan languages are much more different than when it comes to first and second person. First and second person singular pronouns are similar in many Pama-Nyungan languages. Perhaps not this similar, but nevertheless similar. But the variation is much greater in the area of third person. And it is a fact that there is a number of Pama-Nyungan languages, modern languages, that do not have third person pronouns. How does that work, you might ask? Well, when they don't have third person pronouns, they use demonstratives instead, which is common actually in Pama-Nyungan, where they have the demonstratives jam, which means both this and here, and yarang, which means that and there. Yes, so you can see that all three languages are different here. In Ngara we have palora, and as you can see they use the same form for intransitive and transitive subject. In Wargamai we find Nyunga and Nyulanga. Perhaps there is a connection here to the protoforms, Dixon's protoforms. Note that in his reconstruction there were different masculine and feminine pronouns in the proto-language, something that most modern Pama-Nyungan languages lack. So in the nominative we find nu and nan in Dixon's reconstruction, and in the ergative nulu and nando. Yes, so in Pama-Nyungan the use of demonstratives is common, but Diana Eads, who wrote the Pama-Nyungan grammar I read, she wrote that there were also a bunch of third-person singular pronouns that were used very infrequently and that had turned out difficult to elicit. And she lists 4 such pronouns. So the nominative forms would be kulana, malana, ngilina, and ngari. And the ergative forms kulado, malando, nilinado, and ngaringo. I actually wrote ngoringo here first, but it should be ngaringo. So when it comes to the object forms of the third person pronouns, the direct object forms, we have panunya here in Ngara, we have Nyunga. And here we should note that this means that the nominative form and the accusative form are identical. Nyunga. Diana Eads doesn't list any object forms, any accusative forms for these pronouns, so I really can't say anything about that. In the supposed proto-language, Dixon has for the masculine pronoun nunna, and for the feminine one nanna, nanna. Yes. Now, concerning these three languages, two of them need to be considered to be dead languages today, and that would be Ngara and Wargamai, which of course is unfortunate that these two languages are no longer spoken languages. I am happy though that Kumbaingir is still a spoken language. Yes, but outermost edges. And this will be all for today, but I will be back, so see you later.